Company this Ramadan.
Well, at 5 minutes past 5, as we continue with the broadcast this afternoon on the Iftar Drive, we are now taking a look at a report that came out of Al Jazeera, where Zimbabweans are now outraged by the Al Jazeera expose on gold smuggling elite. Now, this follows an Al Jazeera investigation that exposed several individuals that were linked to the government who are involved in gold smuggling. And this has triggered outrage in the country. This was a four-part documentary that was titled The Gold Mafia, and it was filmed by Al Jazeera's investigative unit. And we're going across now to be joined by none other than, and we've had him over and over again. We are talking with Gideon Chitanga, Research Associate at the African Center for the Study of the United States at the University of Witwatersrand. Gideon, good evening to you, or good afternoon to you, and welcome to the show.
Thank you so much. Good afternoon to our listeners.
Yes, since this news broke out, since this expose of the gold mafia, this four-part documentary series, Gideon, we've seen outrage, we've seen Zimbabweans outrage, but clearly this is major cause for concern when we are talking about gold smuggling that by individuals, and particularly as far as the documentary goes, Zimbabwean government officials and the ruling party.
Yes, I think this is so. This has been quite shocking, not only to Zimbabweans. I think to a lot of people who have been able to view or to watch the videos or listen to the podcasts that are tied to the video. What is very striking, specifically for Zimbabwe, is that it is a country which is suffered from economic crisis for a very long time, but also multiple dimensions of emanating from whichever way you take it, either economic crisis or political crisis. The role of the political leaders, I think at the moment we can safely say it's a little bit insinuated. From the two videos that I've watched, at least we have not directly seen or heard them directly captured on video, as is the case with other key players in this gold mafia issue. But we have seen some people who could be at least be identified as critical players in the illicit transactions or money flows and the movement of mineral resources out of the country. And what leaves in a citizen or an individual wondering is how can so much money, so much resources be lost to the hands of the organized gangs, where a lot of it ends up in the hands of individuals. The second thing is how can this implied reference to key leaders happen? What is their level of involvement? We have not really had direct response from the key leaders. The reserving governor has spoken a bit about it, explaining or trying to at least dissociate the institutional standing of the Reserve Bank from the illicit transactions, or at least the video as reported, by arguing that the country, the Reserve Bank, if we are going to make an argument that sanctions are the major cause, the Reserve Bank as an institution is not sanctioned, and therefore it's not even associated either directly or indirectly to the illicit financial processes or outflows. The other issue is you wonder where are the governance systems and where are the key people. As you follow the video from Zimbabwe to financial institutions in South Africa, to Dubai, eventually to London, where some of the key mafia players have business interests or business institutions. So it's a complex web, I think, of day-to-day illicit business transactions that happen every day, but the ordinary people, like probably me and you who are not part of it, are just not aware. It raises concern. The magnitude of it all should leave our leaders in Zimbabwe, in South Africa, in the sub-region, at the level of the African Union, thinking about how these kinds of things can be stopped and resources committed to improving the livelihoods of the citizens. He also raises question about the role of the international community in the sense of how sanctions affect individual countries can transform the basic moral, ethical fiber to the extent that resources are managed in an illicit way at the detriment of economic development. And I'm saying this thinking about how sanctions have modified I think the ethical, moral fiber of ordinary Zimbabweans as well as the leaders to the extent that Zimbabwe as a country can be a theater of such embarrassing activities in the community of nations. So it's really a complex criminal activity that is multifaceted. I can talk about it on and on and on. I think safe to say that it's clear that there are serious illicit things happening, as shown on the video. The only difference is that the levels of involvement differ, and I think directly in terms of the ZANU-PF leadership, at the moment, the two episodes that I have watched, the role of the national leadership, specifically the president, is implied or stated by other actors who refer to number one as involved. And surely we can just look at it from the perspective of those who are referring to the highest offices. And we probably can continue to watch the rest of the documentaries with a bit of the benefit of the doubt for the leadership, but still saying this kind of activity in a country that I certainly know that its security system, particularly when it comes to managing crime, it's very solid. In Zimbabwe, if you commit a crime today, you surely will be found, which is a different case with South Africa, where criminal activities go on and people are not arrested. Even as affected as the whole spectrum of society is by the socio-economic crisis, the security institutions, in terms of addressing crime, they are still very solid.
Yes, but also Gideon, when one looks at this report that has come through from Al Jazeera, and it speaks about how these politicians and people at the top use diplomatic immunity to move the gold and to move the resources and to move money around, and all of this again. And we are no stranger, not only Zimbabwe, but here in South Africa, we know with the Guptas as well. And there is this link with Dubai as well. There was all this talk about how the money actually had left the country undetected, and again, using things like diplomatic immunity. But it's on the one hand, we are talking about people enraged about what's happening in Zimbabwe, but also looking at a country like Dubai, for instance, because Dubai, we know of late, has become known as the world's largest washing machine, where money laundering and money laundering takes place, and money is actually being recycled, and we are talking of huge amounts, massive amounts of money.
Yes. You see, I can't exactly recall the amount that was stated by the African Union as money that is illicitly coming out of the African continent. And I think through the illegal activities of different organized criminal entities. Let's say different organized but also elite criminal entities, because these are just not your ordinary people. These are highly skilled people in their illegal trades. The issue is the key capitals that are implicated. They clearly are enablers of criminal activities. I am not sure whether they just leave their laws and the institutional behaviors to be manipulated by such actors deliberately and voluntarily because they indirectly benefit, or it's just general institutional weaknesses, or the key actors, and I mean the power brokers, the political leaders, are also complicit in one way or the other. In terms of international governance, I would propose and suggest that the case that you referred to about the Guptas, I think there was back and forth with the South African government trying to see if the Gupta brothers could be returned to South Africa so that they can face justice. But beyond that, I think there is need for the international community to put pressure on Dubai, because these cases are not just one isolated case. There are several cases that are coming up. And the first message is that the laws of the country are being abused. The second is that either the key actors are complicit in these kinds of things, if they are not willing to look at their laws and say, how do we protect our laws from criminal abuse? So the international community should be very proactive. Other countries in Africa which are tainted, assuming they are not interested and they are not directly complicit in these criminal activities, should raise their heads and say, we need to strengthen our laws, but also to exert pressure on countries that are associated with these illicit flows as a way of protecting African resources from abuse. If one country is involved or is milked through the direct abuse of resources and end up in an economic crisis that translates to a political crisis, eventually it affects sub-regions, it affects the continent. So there's a level of responsibility at regional level and at continental level to at least try to exercise leverage on other countries which are at least deemed complicit or which are institutionally weaker in terms of addressing illicit financial flows. I would want to say that I bank with one of the banks in South Africa, and I can tell you that it's very difficult to just get there, deposit money, and it's not accounted for. They will exercise all kinds of laws and oversight and insist that you abide by FICA regulations. But clearly, these rules are abused, and I would say that it's not just the corrupt officials who abuse these institutions, but certainly it's because the rules are not really enforced when it comes to the real criminal players and real criminal participants. It could be that they exercise financial power, as we see in the documentaries, and corrupt key players. But I think that there should be a way that laws which target criminal activities are designed to at least detect crime and punish such crime. And also, Africa should do much more at continental and at regional level to start to shout, not only to just whisper in the corridors of power, but to shout and say, we reject these kinds of things. We want resources from the African continent in the context of whichever countries that we relate with to be protected so that they are used within the jurisdictions where they come from and benefit the citizens to enhance their livelihoods. So I think the argument that I'm making is that there should be ways in which the international community, the African continent, regional organizations should be saying to the authorities in Dubai, look, we are not referring to one case or two cases, but we are referring to the general leaks in your legal institutional frameworks where our resources end up in your country. So can we start to have a conversation about how you should prosecute, apprehend, identify implicated individuals or institutions or organized entity, and facilitate the return of our resources to our countries? Dubai is one of the most developed, rapidly developed places in the world, if you like. You don't want people to be going there and thinking everything that we see is coming mainly from illicit kind of engagements. You want a country that becomes a legitimate legal player within the community of countries, and increasingly show to the world that it's taking its place by playing a positive role in terms of at least allowing friendly states to support their citizens and not to leave their citizens suffering while allowing illicit resources into their sovereign entities.
Well, Gideon, thank you very much for that and for unpacking what you have with us this afternoon right here on Solar Media. We wish you all the best. And as always, we appreciate your time with us here on Solar Media. Please take care.
Thank you.
Gideon Chitanga with us this afternoon. We're going to go for a break. We come back, we'll be joined by Professor Andre Duvenacher. We're talking of Thabo Mbeki blasting the ANC for wanting to protect Ramaphosa on Phala at all costs. And this was an explosive letter that was sent by Thabo Mbeki.